The CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now your host, Calvin Alexander.
Hey Cowboy fans, today's episode is brought to you by Oakley Burklow, your go-to independent insurance agent and proud OSU alum. Oakley helps with home, auto, life, and business insurance, working with multiple top-rated insurance companies to find you the right coverage at the right price. Licensed in Oklahoma and Arkansas. Call 918-280-9068 or email oakley.burklow@connectmyinsurance.com. Personal service, honest advice, and a fellow poke helping you protect what matters most. Welcome back to the latest episode of the Calvin Glen Alexander Tour podcast, better yet known as the CGA Tour. As always, here I'm your host, Calvin Glen Alexander, and I am joined tonight during the middle of the Oklahoma State game. We're well aware, but I'm joined here by Colton Davidson, who said, "Don't call me Shirley," as he's got the orange background, coming to us live from a hotel room that's somewhat orange. Colton, how's it going?
Going great, Calvin. How you doing?
Doing good, thanks. Normally, I just want to say as a precursor here, I'll be doing a post game. I've got a wedding to be at 6 o'clock, so we're doing this now here. But Colton, want to talk to you, of course, about the Oklahoma State Baylor game a little bit and about our head coaching options that could be popping up here later on. So first, I'll ask you here, what did you think of the Mike Gundy news and when it happened on Tuesday?
I was pretty shocked, pretty surprised. I'm not going to say shocked that it happened when it did. It seems to kind of portray there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than we even knew. And I think that things are going pretty bad behind the scenes I think Oklahoma State's done a pretty good job of keeping things closed behind closed doors of what's going on and keeping things from getting too messy. But I think there's just a lot going on we didn't know about. And it finally, things kind of came to a head. And I know that Chad Weiberg came on and said that there was a good conversation. And they kind of agreed it was the best decision, and I think it's good that Gundy's moved on and he's kind of stayed quiet after this. But I thought that they'd give him at least 6 games or have him finish the season, and seemed to be pretty rough for a pretty rough start.
Yeah, every report says that they gave him the opportunity to coach the rest of the season, and he said, "I'll take option 1, which is leave now." So, and I think that's one of the things you and I are more interested here about college football and all the changes that are being made is that you're now looking at this like it's a pro team, like it's an NFL head coaching position. If you can get a guy out the door as soon as possible, buy him out of his contract, do whatever you need to get the new guy in quicker and get a better system overall going, I think that's the right move. We're not the first coach. We're not the first team to fire a head coach in the middle of the season. We're the first team to fire a coach of anywhere near Gundy's history and historical and really just overall like emotional quality towards the university. But, we're not the first. So I feel good about that, I guess. UCLA and Virginia Tech beat us to the punch there, right?
Yeah. I think it's a little bit different than the NFL where, the performance of the team has basically no impact on the players you're getting in the next season, where I guess if the worse you do, the better the players are that you might be getting in, the better quality. Whereas there's a lot of uncertainty now with there's already the stuff about that the running back from Jinx, I believe is from Jinx.
Yeah, Caden Batman Jones.
Yeah, he's decommitted, and it's kind of like there's a lot of uncertainty. Is Doug Meachum going to be taking over? Who goes and talks to him? How do you give him any kind of assurances of what's coming in and why you should come to Oklahoma State versus in the NFL? It's kind of the worse you do, the better the draft pick you get. That's kind of something that's kind of unknown about it. You got to get somebody in there soon, and it's just kind of tough. So that's kind of part of why I question firing him this early in the season. But if you're going to make the change, you got to make the change. So I understand.
Yeah, and Weiberg said, "Hey, we now can do everything possible to get our in-house ready to go and be all set and be good, basically, and then we can do everything in the world to get a search agency on this, get a third-party team involved that can also be scouting and get everything just kind of situated as far as it goes for that coaching search. We can get the best candidate available. We can go talk to these guys while they're still coaching the season, and we are in the ability to go, we know we're going to have a new guy at the end of the season no matter what, and it's well known by the fans, so it's no longer going to be a shock. There's not going to be a retirement, et cetera, et cetera. So all good there. through the first half, as we're recording this, I understand the first half's not even over, but we started recording more than an hour into the game. So it's interesting, more than an hour and 30 minutes. But what's your takeaways here from the first half for Oklahoma State versus Baylor?
The team looks loose. The team looks pretty good. I think the playbook has been cracked wide open. I don't know if Gundy or the overall coaching staff strategy was to kind of just keep things and play it close to the chest. But I think whenever you're losing by 66 points to Oregon or to your in-state school that's just not even should not even be close to the same level as you, why is that playbook not getting cracked open and getting things thrown? We've seen some wide receiver throwbacks. We've seen some running back stuff that we haven't seen. A wide receiver threw a touchdown pass, which is kind of interesting. Um, it's kind of like why did it take this game for things to get thrown out there? This kind of look like plays that you don't really install in 4 days. So that's kind of been interesting. But the team does look overall looser. The defense has kind of not been as good as what we've kind of seen against Tulsa or UT Martin, but you know, kind of hard to gauge the defense off of that. And it's also hard to gauge after 66 points to Oregon. But I think the team looks more fun to watch for sure. That's a huge plus for everybody here. It's kind of, this is Meachum's chance to kind of show off, make his case that he could be a guy.
Yeah, I'll shout out to a longtime friend of the podcast here and someone who we've done podcasts on each other's networks before, Justin Southwell. He had it here most amount of yards in the first quarter of a game since 2023. And
Wow.
also season averaging so far this year has been 14 points and 324 yards of offense and 4.7 yards of play. First half, we've got 17 points here, 288 yards of offense and 7.8 yards per play. So already in the first half, doing much better. Scored more points in the first half than we did all last week against Tulsa, which is also bizarre to me. How in the world could we have? I don't know. Could we have done this earlier? It wouldn't have changed. I don't think at all. This play calling, I don't think would have changed anything against Oregon, of course, because that's just we gave up 55 points on the defensive side, and then Zane threw 2 picks. Didn't help, but that was a 66-point loss. Tulsa loss is something else. So I'm really happy, really excited with this kind of deal. I just got to say, the announcers for the game, it's always going to be a pet peeve if you're talking about the amount of people in the stadium and you're seeing it's well below capacity. It's like, well, you're saying it's 52,000. Isn't capacity like 55? Or a little less than 55,000? It just seems like a bizarre note to keep bringing up. Or that Zane Flores should keep running the ball. Well, if you did some scoutage against Oklahoma State, you would know that the guy who's known for that has been out since the first quarter of the first game, if you're the announcers. But then again, it's a small pet peeve. Maybe I'll let it go at some point in my life.
I typically try to turn off I just mute the broadcast and listen to a podcast or an audiobook or something or music, anything but, because especially on these like lower tiered where they're with seeing like they're not their A or their B or their C guys to go see Oklahoma State versus Baylor. Yeah, I have definitely picked up on that, and it's been really annoying how they're talking about this game. But yeah, only down 8 points going into the half. With an interim head coach that found out he was head coach on Tuesday. It's something. This is the most points they've scored all season. They're looking better. They're looking. I like what I'm seeing so far. I don't know that it's. I guess after the lows of this year and last year, it's kind of a pathetic way to be looking at it. But here we are.
Well, you know what? We were favored. I'm saying the words the wrong way here, but Baylor was favored to win by 20.5 points at one point.
Okay.
And it's an 8-point game right here, right now. So if you picked Meachum, Big Meach to cover the spread, you'd be right. Normally people would pick Gundy to cover the spread, but we're going to pick Big Meach to cover the spread here. And new head coach, he's got 20 points, which is more than the last 2 games combined, and more than in any half so far this season. And we've got Sam Jackson the fifth, as you said, got a wide receiver who previously played quarterback, has played at 4 different schools in 4 different years, and he looks like he can throw the ball a little bit. And the other 2 things I had to know here before we talk about the coaching, Rodney Fields, it went under the radar. He had 6.5 yards on average against Tulsa. We could have given the ball more, I hope. I hope someone would say that. That's just as bizarre. He had like over 100 yards running the ball against Tulsa. Would have loved to just that was a big highlight for myself here looking at the Oklahoma State team. The other thing is that on the very opening drive of the game for Oklahoma State, when Zane first gets the ball, the third down pass plays to a receiver who was not looking for the ball, not looking at him, not making the break there on the route to look for him. Now, a Baylor defender just smacked the ball into the ground. He might have been able to pick it off. He was that close. But it's a pretty weird deal, in my opinion. That's all I'll say. That, we've got that kind of stuff going on here. All right. Well, that was kind of my whole spiel about the first half here, I guess. So we can just hop into it because the coaching staff we know is going to change this offseason, at least somewhat. We know there will be a new offensive coordinator or a new head coach or a new whole deal. What do you have here? Because I know you said you planned something a little special here to kind of get at the Oklahoma State coaching staff, bring some new levels to it. We can talk a little bit more in a little bit more of a fun fashion as opposed to, oh, well, Gundy finally bit the dust, kind of move.
Yeah, we'll bring some lightheartedness to a kind of a down time in Oklahoma State football. So I was trying to come up with head coaching candidates, and I watched the movie Airplane this week again for the first time in several years with my wife, and it's been kind of on my mind. And I was thinking it'd be really fun to pull quotes that are really zany from that movie, if you are familiar with it, to apply to these different head coaching candidates. I feel like a good quote from Airplane to lead into and give you a good feel of what I think of these different candidates I'm seeing floating around online, or that I've had, OSU fans, I've had OU fans weigh in on what they think that OSU should do. So I'm going to start with this quote from the movie where the stewardess asks the doctor on the airplane, which Calvin, have you seen Airplane? Or else this is going to be a really weird podcast.
No, okay. I have seen Airplane. The Rewatchables just did an episode with Bill Hader on it, with Bill Simmons. So I've not yet listened to that Rewatchables, but I have seen the movie quite a few times. It's a classic.
Okay, so the stewardess asks the doctor, a hospital, what is it? And the doctor says, it's a big building with patients, but that's not important right now. So I think that this is for the guy that makes sense, but there still needs to be some explaining. We still got to explain why this may or may not work for Oklahoma State. And I think that's Zach Robinson. Trying to kind of hit the spark notes. He's currently the offensive coordinator for the Falcons. He was the former OSU quarterback, one of the first guys that I grew up watching play quarterback. I remember that game against Ole Miss in the Cotton Bowl, one of his last games. Dual threat guy, if you don't remember him, kind of held a lot of the records before Mason Rudolph and Brandon Whedon came in. I think why people are clinging to him is because he kind of fits the same mold as Gundy, where he was a former, OSU quarterback, set some records, did some things. People have fond memories of him, I'm sure. But right now, he's the head coach or the offensive coordinator for the Falcons. He's been kind of around the NFL for the last 10 years or so. Most recently, he's on Sean McVay's staff there with the Rams. And so that's kind of the pros. He's been around some coaching staffs, been in some good rooms that people would consider prominent guys. But I have some cons. That he's been with Atlanta for 2 seasons, and neither of those seasons has Atlanta had a top 10 scoring offense. This week, it got announced that they're moving him from the booth down to the field to help with some communication issues with him and Michael Penix. Penix showed promise at the end of last year, but this year has kind of been a little bit of a disappointment. And I just kind of don't see him as the bona fide gold star candidate because we don't really know. He's never had to recruit. He's been in the NFL for this whole time. So Calvin, what do you think of the quote and what do you think of Zach Robinson?
Great quote, great placement of the quote because we do need more explanation about Zach Robinson. I am fully in agreement there. I'm hesitant on being all in on a former Cowboy who is, how much of a copy can you get of Mike Gundy to have as the next Oklahoma State head coach? You've got a guy who, I think almost the years line up. It's like Gundy came in 04 and, Robinson becoming in 26. It's almost 20 years later. There's all of this, basically just all of these parallels here between Gundy and Zach Robinson. And Mike Gundy was an incredible head coach for Oklahoma State, but at the time he take over as head coach, he was not the consensus guy to take over. I think that's forgotten a little bit. I've had to do some research because in 3rd grade was 03 for me. So yes, I'm 32, but I don't remember Les Miles era as well as I could have if I was 13 or 14 instead I was in elementary school. But with that being said, the Falcons made a change here with their staff. They're trying to get Zach Robinson more on the field. Does Zach Robinson want to make more money in the NFL? Is he going to kind of try to play hardball with both and see which he has leverage with more? I mean, the Falcons turn this thing around, which is not too hard to believe. They're in the
No.
NFC South. They could all of a sudden be off to the races. I mean, they could be contending with the Bucs for that division or whatever. And all of a sudden, Zach Robinson could be getting NFL head coaching options. And
Correct.
supposedly he was a handshake away from getting that this last offseason. I mean, he was interviewing for head coaching vacancies in the NFL this past offseason. So
Okay. I did not know that. So
the other couple things I'd say, I think you and I both are on the same page, and a lot of other people across the whole entire media landscape, NFL landscape, whatever, love Sean McVay. It's not new news, right? Robinson was never the offensive play caller or the offensive coordinator with Sean McVay at the Rams. I'm not saying he should have been, because McVay is the offensive genius. You would want him to be that. But like the previous assistants that have gone on to do extremely well in the NFL level, Kevin O'Connell, Mike McDaniel, and others, they were all offensive coordinators or at least had some play calling duties, where Zach did not. So I'm curious to see how the season goes for him and the Atlanta Falcons. I'd almost go, can we talk about this can we give Zach another 3 years? Not because I need to see more out of the Atlanta Falcons offense. I need the national state and the national level of every school, future recruit and all type of stuff to know Zach Robinson is a household name. Because I think that's where the draw is going to be. Hey, I want to come play for Zach Robinson at Oklahoma State. He's going to get me to the NFL. He's going to be the guy who's going to coach me up as a quarterback. He was a previous quarterback's coach, previous NFL guy who had 3 years, which is a little bit more than a cup of coffee in the NFL, on practice squads and for the Patriots, Seahawks, Lions, and Bengals. And so he's been around NFL programs. But this is not a guy who followed your typical experience of doing some stuff in college and then going up. How many college contacts does he have? How many other options do we have outside of Zach as far as it goes to the rest of the position staff? Is Zach going to come in and just go, hey, I want to keep everyone who's here. Everyone who's here is doing great, especially if Oklahoma State wins 2 or 3 more games this season. Doesn't seem that lofty an expectation. After this Baylor game, I'm kind of like, maybe it's possible. But why try to jump on the Zach train just because it's there? And that's the only thing I'd say. He's 38. Gundy, when he took over, was around the same age exactly. Because Gundy's, I think, 58 or 59 now, and coached for 21 years. So there's a bunch of parallels. I just am very hesitant because I would much rather get to a bowl game next year and have a slower build. And I think that's what the NIL world and everything is set up for at this point. I think right now we're all set up for a head coach at a program that it would look at Oklahoma State as a stepping stone maybe, but also a way to level up himself, a way to level up his pocketbook, a way to level up his ability to recruit. And yeah, there might be a guy who comes in, for example, GJ Kinney, and say, hey, I would love to come to Oklahoma State, but he's got a sight set on the SEC or Big Ten money. Gundy flirted with both of those different conferences. It's definitely Tennessee is well documented. Yearly, it seemed. It wasn't really that much, but it's not like Gundy wasn't trying to go get a bigger bag and also treat Oklahoma State kind of as a stepping stone, even though it's his own school at one point. So is it too far-fetched to think Zach Robinson wouldn't also go, I think I topped out here at some point, 5 to 10 years into the program? I just don't think there's a guy who we can bring in and go, oh, man, hey, we'd love to have you on the one exception. You got to stay here forever. And that's kind of like the more
you got to be
questions.
here 20 years. At least we can't expect that.
We can't expect it. It's no longer how things work in college football, and you cannot have just one donor come in and save you. If Stephen Pickens, maybe you could. Carson Colby with the Pistols Firing podcast said there's a current Oklahoma State donor who I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, who's about to sell his business for $1 billion or more, who could come in and all of a sudden donate money, or could not. He could have been a Gundy fan and go, no, I'm not giving another $1 to the university. I wish he'd kept Gundy. We're not in these conversations. We can speculate, but I'm very nervous on the Zach Robinson. I'm not all for it.
Yeah,
I'm not
he makes me
in.
nervous.
I'm down to dip a toe in. I've done the test drive. I've test driven Zach Robinson as head coach, and the feel is just not there. The feel behind the wheel is just not there. I'm feeling a little bit more kind of on the rumble strips here, trying to steer us back onto the road every so often. I'm not loving it, just because I would much more love a guy who's already proven he can really excel in the NIL world, because I think that's somebody we have the money That's the thing. Oklahoma State, year over year, paid Gundy top 3 money to be a head coach. Even in 2014, when we were, it was a miracle to win Bedlam. We've year over year paid top 3 Big 12 money, and usually top money overall. To our assistants, $1 million a year. I think that's what Meachum and Grantham both getting paid as well too. That would double Zach Robinson's salary right now. If he came to Oklahoma State as an offense coordinator, his salary would double. So I'm just I'm hesitant. I want a guy who's already proven.
Yeah, totally understand. Well, do you want the next guy?
Yeah, because we got like 10, maybe 15 minutes. So
okay, I'll keep it quick. I'll keep it quick.
I rambled for forever. I'll check myself at the door here too.
I'll keep it quick. I think this next quote. So in the movie, whenever the Ted Stryker shows up, he's driving a taxi cab. He pulls up to the curb. He jumps out. A guy gets in. He starts the meter and says, "I'll be right back." And he runs inside. And then he obviously gets on the plane to try to woo Elaine one last time. And the movie periodically cuts back. And there's one moment where the guy is still sitting in the cab, even though it's been probably hours of real time. He says, "I'm gonna give him another 20 minutes," but that's it. I think that's Doug Meachum. That is, if Doug Meachum comes in, the program kind of returns to at least being respectable. The offense starts to click. He gets Hedney back, and maybe Hedney makes the offense explode. You could point all of that towards him. If he brought this guy with him from TCU, all those things. He's had success. He's had top 3 offenses in the Big 12 before in 2014, 2015, 2021. He's in 2022 both of those 21, 22 were he was the assistant. He wasn't the play caller. Whenever he was a play caller, he won the Broyles Award in 2013. He was on that championship run. He would keep that continuity with Hedgney, and then some cons. He's older, but he has no head coaching experience. That's just kind of what I'm thinking. And then the other thing that I had here was name the last interim head coach to work out long term. It almost never works out. They hire the interim guy, and it never works out. It almost never does. But that was him. What do you think, Calvin?
I'll make it quick, simple, and easy. I just at the end of the season, let's come back to Meachum and let's see then, because right now I haven't seen enough to make me even think a yes or no, or no. My head from my ass when I'm talking about Todd Meachum is Doug Meachum. I always do that. Todd Grantham, Doug Meachum. I don't even know my head from my ass when it comes to talking about Meachum. So I mean, yeah, he brought in Hosseini, and that was a great bring. That was a great recruit to bring over. But you know what? Let's talk more about him maybe in another 4 or 5 games, down the line here, because I just haven't seen enough.
Right. We've seen one half of him as the head coach. I agree.
Seems fun right now for sure, but TBD.
So this next guy's my guy that I really thought of. I haven't seen any buzz about this whatsoever, but the quote is, "The life of everyone on board depends on just one thing: finding someone back there who can not only fly this plane but didn't have fish for dinner." So I think Will Stein. So this is a guy that, hey, we need to find somebody that can right the ship, that can coach a quarterback, that can bring us a big time offense, but has nothing to do with Oklahoma State. And that's Will Stein, OC for Oregon. The guy has basically had a top 15 in total offenses whenever he was the OC at UTSA. They brought him in along with Dante Moore, which you've documented on your podcast as a guy that had a terrible start at UCLA, comes over to Oregon. And Todd McShay was on Bill Simmons's podcast, and he was Todd McShay's top guy. Granted, Todd McShay said this is the guy that has not faced a big time defense yet, but he said that this was his top passer of the football. So that's just something that you could come in of like, hey, Will Stein came in, he worked with this guy, he got him up to point where that offense was being ran extremely efficiently, and has kind of been the orchestrator of that offense the last 2 years. That worked with Dylan Gabriel. I think he worked with Gabriel, and then at least worked with the guy before Gabriel, who's my brain. Bo Nix probably at some point. That's what I'm thinking. Doesn't have any head coaching experience. Has really just been a play caller. Has been an OC guy, but he's been around Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning's built an amazing program up there in Oregon, and they're going to be a pretty where the guy that you had on from Oregon. he's built a perennial program where that beat writer was basically saying like, I fully expect a playoff berth. Like that's what I'm expecting this year. So
I love that you're bringing up between Zach Robinson and Will Stein, two guys that are under 40 that maybe have some of that energy that you'd really want to see come in and be an offensive coordinator to a head coach at Oklahoma State. I think getting previous offensive coordinators, and we've got Taylor here commenting about as well too. Guys who've been previous assistants that have come in and done really well with Oklahoma State. I'd also say this: like we have brought in guys that are not Oklahoma State related or not Oklahoma State, no Oklahoma State parallels, and that's David Taylor, J.C. Hoyt. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting like three more here, but there are Steve Lutz, excuse me, of course. There are guys who've been brought in who already look pretty good, guys and gals. And so I'd be all for Will Stein. The caveat or thing that would pull me back a little bit from him is if I'm playing devil's advocate, does like does he know the Midwest that well? I
right.
mean, like we have enough time here to go after the guy to get this perfect, to get this exactly right. Nothing in my book right now says no to Will Stein, except for one little small thing. How good are you at recruiting this area of the country when it comes to, hey, no, your son's not going to go play. If you're an Oregon guy right now, you're recruiting off of, hey, let's fly to New York. Let's fly to, the Big Ten country. Let's fly down south to California. Let's stay here. Let's recruit our area. But no matter what, hey, USC, UCLA, we're going to come down and play there, once while your son's in college. We're going to go over there, play once our son's in college. Is that a brand new recruiting landscape? I'd say no. I mean, he previously coached at, he's the
Yeah,
he was
OC
the
at
associate head
UTSA.
coach, OC, and quarterbacks coach at Lake Travis High School. I wanted to get that right.
Hmm.
But I that seems fun. Why not?
Yeah, I'll keep moving, Cal. So I'll keep moving. I want to hit all of these. That's my goal. Is got to hit all of these.
Okay.
So Captain, maybe we got to turn the searchlights on now. No, that's just what they'll be expecting us to do. So it's trying like, hey, what's an obvious thing that people would be expecting us to do? And I think Todd Monken, former OSU OC, 2010 to 2012 range, big time guy. Like, that was probably when OSU's offense was at its peak of its powers. Was unstoppable basically during that time. Um, been at every level. Worked at LSU. Has had head coaching experience. He turned at Southern Miss around where they kind of had a respectable year. Then he left to go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as their offensive coordinator. Currently, basically, kind of like revolutionized Lamar Jackson and what we think of him as a NFL quarterback. That's pretty interesting. Basically, say, hey, what are you good at? Oh, let's just do that. Um, I don't think anybody blames him for the playoff failures last year. So anyway, that was kind of him. Any comments, Calvin?
Ravens fans are just blaming the OU graduate Mark Andrews. Of course, just giving him a hard time here because he went to OU in this Oklahoma State podcast. But nonetheless, that would be let's go get a proven Zach Robinson, but who's older than Gundy, and that would be the kind of all right, like what else? What else is there? I would think really at this point that if a guy with so much NFL experience, so much NFL, like higher up, well done. Lamar Jackson is incredible. He's gone from a guy who's like got a defense and offense to a guy where, as a Chargers fan who previously had their offensive coordinator with the Ravens, Greg Roman, I'm going, oh yeah, this is why Lamar Jackson was held back. Now the Chargers
Hmm.
offense looks good this year, but would love to have him. I think at the end of the day, like no matter what, he'd be gone in like 5 minutes. It'd be like 2 to 3 years. He's 59 years old. I don't think
Right.
age is everything necessarily, but like I think he'd be gone. I think if an NFL head coaching opportunity pops up, I also don't think he'd come to Stillwater. To be honest, I'll just say it that way.
Okay.
I don't think the ability to move up that fast is still there.
So the next guy, so the quote would be, the Sturgis goes on the speaker. It says, ladies and gentlemen, this is your Sturgis speaking. We regret any inconvenience the sudden cabin movement has caused. This is due to periodic air pockets we encountered. There is no reason to become alarmed, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your flight. By the way, is there anyone on board who knows how to fly a plane? So I think this is like, hey, is there anybody out there? We're going through a big rough patch. Like everything we know about OSU football has changed in literally like 4 days. Bring in a guy who's built a program ground up. Eric Morris with North Texas. Um, the guy was the offensive coordinator for Pat Mahomes at Texas Tech, the head coach at Incarnate Word for 3 years. Um, Basically won Coach of the Year in that conference. He's been at North Texas since 2023, and they just had a big win today against. Oh gosh, I just was watching the game. I can't remember who they were playing, but they won today. They're now 5-0. Offense first guy that fits the OSU mold, familiar with the Big 12 because he's been in Texas Tech, was at Texas Tech for a while. Program builder. The cons, I think he might be going after a bigger job because the UCLA job is probably open, and that's probably pretty attractive playing over there. Um, that's really kind of what I had to
I
say about Eric Morris.
Yeah, I'd say somebody who's lived on the West Coast for bits and pieces of my life here and there. It's definitely very attractive. I don't think the UCLA structure is the greatest. UCLA has 3,000 plus graduates who make over $100 million a year. I think I saw recently. So
Hmm.
UCLA has all of the money in the world. It's so bizarre. School's not in session for the first 4 games of the season ever. That's just how that's how USC operates too, honestly. That's how Oregon operates, but they somehow pack
Hmm.
out the stadium. UCLA is just really tough time getting any game on TV looking good, especially earlier in the season. I remember the LSU UCLA game years ago that UCLA won, but it just looked bad. I'll try to speed it up here a little bit though on that. Yeah, why not? But it just recency bias would be my thing, and is he waiting around for the Texas Tech job to open up? If it does, yeah, I mean, this is a
Hmm.
guy who I think would go back to where he played college at, and I wouldn't blame him. I wouldn't blame him to going back to where he knows a lot. But then again, like so far with North Texas, when schedules are all completed, he's 16-14. So he just in a perfect scenario, can we wait to see a little bit more? But he's a great name to mention for sure.
The next name, so this is when Stryker is first brought up into the cockpit. They're trying to figure out what does he know. He's trying to fight. Hey, I'm not the guy for the job. He says I flew single engine fighters in the Air Force, but this plane has 4 engines. It's an entirely different kind of flying altogether. And the stewardess and the doctor say together, it's an entirely different kind of flying. So this name came up whenever a guy was talking about an OU fan was talking about, hey, the switch to going from offensive minded to defensive minded, and he brought up Matt Patricia. Totally different kind of vibe to Oklahoma State. Big time NFL guy, has won Super Bowls, been around Bill Belichick for years. It ended horribly with the Patriots. It ended horribly for Detroit. But he's kind of started, he went to Ohio State. He's kind of the guy that ousted Arch Manning as a fraud, kind of, that ruled that ruled the first take headlines for weeks of Arch Manning being bad. But I've seen some things going around like, hey, he's been awesome on the recruiting trail. He got a linebacker to flip to him. The defense has looked incredible the first few games of the season. I think I would rather like if you're going to go with somebody like that. He's not been in the college coaching ever. He's been an NFL only guy, and that's kind of what would scare me away from that. And it would scare me away like some of his. I was reading some stuff about how he treated Detroit Lions beat reporters kind of very arrogantly, but it looks like he's been humbled and he's kind of figured that out. And even some of the articles were talking about, hey, he kind of came back and he fixed that, and he brought guys in, brought them in to talk, all that stuff. So
I'm
anyway,
I'm
that's
out.
kind of like that's my big one. You're out on Matt.
I'm out.
I think I'm
No
the
one
same way,
wins.
but
No one wins at Ohio State. No one wins there besides Michigan. No one wins there. It looks good so far. You're the number one team in the country. Can he recruit? Can he do NIL stuff? This is his first year doing this stuff, and he's taken over for Jim Knowles, which had an incredible defense last year that won national championship. So I'm, I'm just out. I'm out on the reputation alone, honestly, and just kind of out.
Mhm. I have. Well, you want the last names? We'll just do the names.
Yeah,
Okay, Colin Klein, current A&M OC. Interesting. My quote for him was, Joey, do you like movies about gladiators? Because I just have in my mind him just, running over 3 or 4 OSU guys and dragging across goal lines and just killing us every year. Mike McDaniels, he's on the hot seat. You bring in an offensive guru. Jim Knowles, former Oklahoma State guy. He's currently probably staying on a wad of cash in Penn State right now as their DC. AC Dunn was one I thought about because whenever he was here, we constantly had Biletnikoff finalists at wide receiver. I feel like today we've seen some better wide receiver play, but that's one that I kind of thought about. is, what if Gundy was holding the back? What if Gundy was really in charge of the offense and had his hand over it? Maybe Dunn wasn't so bad, but I think the fan base was so against Dunn that you couldn't do it. But anyway, those are the guys I had in mind.
I'm going to go more into depth on this on a future podcast. I think I've got one with John Kurtz, who does the Open for Business, kind of the Big 12 informational, and he's been covering the Big 12, big K-State guy a little bit, and I think we're recording that one tomorrow. We'll try to put it out ASAP after that, if not first thing Monday, covering more of the GJ Kenny, the Alex Golesh, the a little more of the Will Stein, Zach Robinson, and then also I've already done a podcast about Ben Arbuckle, but we'll get into more of that as well too. For the names that you mentioned here, Mike McDaniel is fascinating because what would that look like? But again, to me, it is would he come? Would he do it?
Would we want him? I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds great. Sounds fun. I mean, honestly, that sounds like the most fun possible. But if you're leaving the NFL and you're a Miami head coach and you come to college, maybe you can just be like a historical, unprecedented herald of success at a school that has previously had success. Nick Saban-esque. That's kind of my parallel there, right? Would he be the Nick Saban coming to college after coaching the NFL at the Dolphins? Weirdly enough, there's parallels for you. But in all reality, of the names you mentioned there, Jim Knowles sitting on a fat stack of cash, but the next Oklahoma State coach, I think, will be making between $4 to $5 million. I do not think Jim Knowles is currently making that much money. I think he currently is getting paid like 2 to 3, which, hey, come back. I don't know. And who's the very last name that you mentioned?
With Knowles, you're getting into age as well.
Yeah.
He's like late 50s. The last name I said
Mike McDaniel.
Casey Dunn
Knowles,
is what I
Casey
talked
Dunn.
about there. Mm-hmm.
Man, I just don't think the fan base does it.
I don't think the fan base
I don't think anyone does it. I think everyone right now is apologizing to Casey Dunn all over Twitter, which is pretty good because if you listen to any podcast ever, the previous 10 years, been doing this now, but the previous 10 years that Jake Carlson was on, Jake was always saying, it's not Dunn, it's Gundy. He was saying that for years. Do you have a little bit of insider info that there's someone on the coaching staff I know, not directly, but kind of through a friend or two? And yeah, he would say the same. This was kind of Gundy being the parent, kind of limiting the amount of fun you could do on offense because it would create big issues and big time plays and stuff. And, Gundy's gone on the record of saying, hey, I like doing the running up the middle. I like doing the bubble screens to the outside because you're making all the defensive guys, these big 300-pound dudes that are killing your run game, you're making them move. You're making them get out in space, cover space, all type of stuff. And you know what? Props to Gundy for thinking that type of stuff. That is not necessarily the way that I think about football. The way I think about football is how many great plays can you get a guy open, not how can you win a game in the fourth quarter. And there's just two different ways to do it. I'm trying to win the game in the first 3 if I'm thinking about as head coach. Gundy's trying to win it the whole way through, which is just a different idea. He's trying to wear you down. He's trying to wear you down through the whole game, and then the fourth quarter make that final punch. Sometimes we just don't have the ability to do that when it comes to OU, Oregon, whoever. So I would rather have a high-powered offense and stuff. And yeah.
Can I give you the quote I had for Casey Dunn?
Yeah.
Because I think it kind of fits. It's like, Joey, have you ever been in a Turkish prison? I think that would basically be what it'd be like. Is he would be treated like it would probably the fan base would revolt. It would be really bad. But I do kind of agree with you. I think Gundy had his hand over, had it basically the parent and was limiting him. But all right.
All right. Well, Colton, as always, thanks so much for joining the latest episode of CGA Tour podcast. Hopefully you're everyone's getting back to the second half, and good luck with your travels back from your very orange-colored hotel room, and go Pope. Hey, Cowboy fans. Today's episode is brought to you by Oakley Burklow, your go-to independent insurance agent and proud OSU alum. Oakley helps with home, auto, life, and business insurance, working with multiple top-rated insurance companies to find you the right coverage at the right price. Licensed in Oklahoma and Arkansas. Call 918-280-9068 or email oakley.burklow@connectmyinsurance.com. Personal service, honest advice, and a fellow Pope helping you protect what matters most.